The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and old regret. I stood outside the door for a second longer than I should have, hand frozen midair. Inside, I could already hear the laughter, not the warm kind, but the sharp, pointed kind that felt like it had teeth. My name hadn't even been mentioned. When I finally stepped into the house, everything about it looked the same. Same beige walls. Same fake floral centerpiece on the dining table. Same man in the armchair who made me feel 10 inches tall, just by raising an eyebrow. Reed Halden. I was 25 now, not a child anymore. But stepping into that room, I felt 16 again, the kind of 16 that knows too much silence, too much disappointment, too many dinners where your seat feels colder than everyone else's. Marin, Reed said with a nod, like he was addressing the mail carrier. You made it. No hug. No warmth. Just observation. Serena glanced up from her wine glass. She smirked. Rowan didn't even turn around. Lisa, my mother, stood in the kitchen doorway, hands wrapped in a dish towel. She smiled. Barely. You look tired, sweetheart, she said, voice low, almost apologetic. I work, I replied. It came out sharper than I meant. Dinner was loud, but not for me. Every joke seemed to circle back to someone's promotion, someone's new home, someone's baby. When silence fell, it was never for me. It was only before the next jab. You're still doing that freelance tech thing, right? Rowan asked, voice sticky with sarcasm. Coding said, yes. Right. Building apps from your laptop in coffee shops. Living the dream, he chuckled, raising his glass. I wanted to leave then, but I stayed. I don't know why. Maybe because I hoped someone, anyone, would notice how hard it was just to sit there. Have you ever been surrounded by your own blood and felt like a stain? By dessert, the cruelty turned performative. Reed tapped his glass with a fork. Let's raise a toast. To family. Laughter. Eyes turned. He looked at me. And to our dear Marin, who's taught us all a very important lesson, that not every branch on the family tree bears fruit. Rowan hooted. Dead woods still wood, right? I stood up. My chair scraped back, loud against the tile. I'm leaving. Serena blocked my way, holding a plastic trash bag. Wait, we have a gift. She grinned. For all your broken dreams. Figured you'd need something to carry them in. The laugh that followed, it didn't belong to strangers. It came from people I used to call home. Shut up, I snapped. My voice cracked. Just shut up. Then came the slap. It wasn't loud, but it was surgical. Reed's palm met my cheek with decades of control, and insult packed behind it. Everything stopped. Lisa's eyes flinched. Her body didn't. She walked over slowly. My heart was still ringing from the hit. She said nothing, just reached into her apron and held out something cold and cracked. A wristwatch. The same one she used to wear. Face shattered. Hand stuck at 3:17. No words. Just the object. She placed it in my palm like she was passing on a curse. Time's up, Marin. No one followed me out the door. I drove. No destination. Just motion. Rain started before midnight, heavy enough that it blurred the road signs. I pulled into a gas station lot and let the engine die. That cracked watch ticked against my thigh. It didn't work, but I still heard it. I leaned my head back and tried to pretend the car roof was the sky. At some point, I dreamed of being small again, under an umbrella that my mother held out over me, her hand steady, her voice whispering that I'd be safe. But dreams lie. The lights were still on at our old house. I sat across the street, staring through the rain-soaked windshield. If I just walked up, if I just knocked. I didn't. I drove off before I could convince myself I mattered enough. When I woke, the sky was gray and the world colder. My car was gone. A tow truck had taken it while I slept, curled in the passenger seat like a ghost trying to haunt her own life. I sat on the sidewalk, soaked from the overnight rain. A boy I knew in high school, we'd shared a locker row, walked past. He glanced at me, then looked away, fast. People forget you quickly when you're inconvenient. I walked. A shelter down the block let me in. No questions, just a clipboard. That night I met Agnes. She didn't ask who I was, just handed me a granola bar and a blanket, then kept mopping like it was her sanctuary. "Still got your eyes," she said without looking at me. "That means you still got fire." I didn't cry. Not when Reed hit me. Not when Lisa offered the watch. Not when the car disappeared. But something about that sentence. It stayed. The next morning, I walked to the public library. It opened at 9. I was there at 8:30, hands in my jacket pockets, gripping the cracked watch like it might tell me who I used to be. I typed "Learn to Code Free" into the search bar. I clicked the first link, then the second, then bookmarked a course called Python for Beginners. That afternoon, I messaged my cousin in Dallas, the one who once said I could stay with her if things ever got bad. She left me on read. That night, I wrote in a notebook I found at the shelter. They buried me, but they forgot I was a seed. The watch still didn't tick, but I felt something move. I lifted my phone, stared into the camera. I'm not done. The floor of the shelter creaked when I left at dawn. No one saw me go. The city was already awake. Austin's buses groaned, baristas pulled espresso, delivery trucks hummed like background noise to a life I wasn't quite in yet. I rented a studio the size of a closet with paint peeling off one wall and a leaky faucet that sounded like a ticking clock. But it was mine, and for the first time I didn't sleep in a car or on borrowed sympathy. Nights were for lifting boxes in a warehouse where no one knew my name. Mornings were for coding. I sat on a second-hand chair at a folding table, cold coffee always near, fingers trembling on the keyboard. My first hello world was a shaky victory. A quote stuck in my mind. "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I whispered it like a vow every time the screen blurred from exhaustion. It wasn't much, but it was a start. One evening at a local tech meetup, I met Dante Rivas. He didn't ask about my past. He just said, "You code like someone with something to prove." And I guess I did. Dante showed me how to clean up my syntax, how to stop apologizing in comments, how to think bigger than survival. He never spoke down to me, just beside me. I wrote in my journal that night, if they buried me, they forgot I was a seed. I built my first app from that folding table, a basic inventory tracker for small vendors. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. A food truck owner took a chance on me. That $400 changed my life. Have you ever built something from zero and been told it wasn't enough? I kept building anyway. The startup came together in pieces. Dante believed in the vision. We hired interns, 3 of them hungry and green. Our app gained users. Feedback rolled in. Updates. Patches. Progress. But pressure reveals cracks. One of the interns, Miles, started missing deadlines. Whole folders of code vanished. I confronted him. He didn't deny it, just smirked. He'd been approached by a rival startup. They offered him cash to sabotage. He accepted. It almost ended us. The press caught wind of a leaked Slack message. Family isn't who raised you. It's who respects you. They clipped it, spun it. Suddenly I was trending, not for building something, but for supposedly bashing my own blood. Hate mail filled our inbox. Comments flooded our social pages. Ungrateful witch. Another snowflake playing victim. Dante called. I ignored it. Twice. I sat alone in the office, head in my hands, wondering if I'd just become a meme they'd use to validate every reason they'd cast me out. But something in me refused to fold. The pivot came quietly. The inventory app morphed into something deeper. Tools for emotional tracking, workplace mental health, ways to quantify burnout, stress, recovery. The pain had to mean something. I stood before a group of stone-faced investors, slides flicking behind me. My voice didn't shake. Respect is currency, I said. Blood is not. One leaned forward. "You've got fire." Dante stood behind me, hands in his pockets, grinning. We got the funding. We moved to San Diego. The tech corridor welcomed us with cautious optimism. The app launched under a new name. Media outlets latched on. From Ghost of the Family to Ghostbuster for corporate trauma. I hated the headline, but the downloads climbed. When did you first realize your value wasn't defined by someone else's opinion? Success felt surreal. Then came the envelope. My name in sharp black ink. Inside, a subpoena. Reed Halden's lawyers claimed we'd stolen proprietary data from a family-run logistics firm. I remembered that offer. He once told me I could answer phones for minimum wage. Now, he claimed I'd stolen from him? I sat in the chrome lobby of our office tower at 2:03 a.m., watching my reflection distort in the polished walls. I thought of my mother's silence, the watch she gave me, time still broken. I didn't want to fight like them. I called Blake Arden, our attorney. "We're not just defending," I said. "We're defining a new standard." She paused. "That's going to cost you." "I know." I closed my laptop, opened the desk drawer. There it was, the cracked watch. I held it in my palm and whispered to no one. They thought burying me ended the story. The mansion sat above the ocean like it had been carved from salt and resolve. Glass walls, exposed stone minimalism. It wasn't just a home. It was proof that I had rebuilt, brick by brick, from the rubble they left me in. And then they came back. Reed Halden rang the bell with the same fingers that once pointed me toward the door. Flanked by Rowan and Serena, all teeth and tension. They were the kind of desperation that comes from a long fall. Reed's voice cracked with charm. "Rough times, Marin. Just temporary. Family helps family, right?" I stood at the threshold of everything I had made. "You can stay," I said. "But under my roof, you live by my terms. One step out of line, and the door closes behind you." Have you ever had to let the people who broke you walk into the life you rebuilt? They moved in like fog. Subtle, heavy everywhere. Serena claimed a guest room with the best view and started talking about feng shui adjustments. Rowan lounged in the media room, like he owned the pixels. Reed offered to cook once, then never again. I watched. I waited. The walls didn't feel like mine anymore. The air shifted, and then things started to disappear. Serena brought in what she called a design assistant, a sleek box labeled as a lighting sensor, tucked discreetly into a corner. I opened it one night. Camera lens. Rowan had guests over. Loud ones. Slurred voices in the kitchen. One wandered upstairs. Then the leak. A video surfaced on social media. Me, yelling at a blurred figure. The audio spliced and sharpened. "You never did anything for me." The caption read, "CEO berates elderly mother over inheritance." The footage was fake, heavily edited, but viral truth doesn't care about accuracy. My company's shares dipped 14% overnight. I opened a drawer in the office. There it was, the old watch, the one Reed had tossed away years ago. Still cracked, still ticking silence. I knew their game now. I invited Rowan to the study. Just the two of us. "You think you're clever," I said, placing a glass of scotch in front of him. He leaned back. "I think we're family." I hit record on my phone hidden between books. He talked. About debt. About Reed's failed investments. About how setting you up gives us leverage. He smiled the whole time. Later that night, a neighbor I hadn't seen since the old days knocked on the back door. She held out a USB. "I saw the cameras," she said. "Thought you might need this." Inside, time-stamped footage of Serena installing surveillance. The next morning, I called Blake Arden. We drafted the notice, scheduled the press statement, and then dinner. I sat across from them at my reclaimed table. Blake stood beside me, formal but fierce. "You've trespassed not just physically but morally. This house wasn't built with your money. or your approval. It was built because you didn't believe in me. I slid the evidence across the table. Reed's face drained. Rowan stood but didn't speak. Serena scoffed and walked toward the hallway. You don't know what you're throwing away, she hissed. I looked past her. Then take it with you. They left with bags full of nothing. The silence they left behind felt lighter than any apology they never gave. And then she appeared. Lisa, standing just outside the front gate, holding something small in her hand. She stepped forward slowly and placed the broken watch into my palm. Her eyes didn't meet mine. I was silent, she said, so you could survive. And then she left, her footsteps softer than they'd ever been when I was small and waiting. I walked to the balcony. The sea roared like it had been waiting, too. I held the watch over the railing and let it fall. Sometimes the hardest fight isn't with the ones who hurt you. It's with the one who stood still while you were burning. I turned from the water, closed the door behind me. No more ghosts. This house is mine now, from the ground up.